Why don't we get started, just kind of go down the line. Tell us a little bit about your UC architecture. Where are you today, and sort of how many users are you supporting? Let's start there.
Go ahead. So first off, thanks for having me today. I'm incredibly passionate about this topic. We have a 21st Century Fox. We're supporting about 25,000 users across 90 countries. Our overall architecture, we use Okta as our identity management. That's really how we've brought the organization together from an identity management point of view. Then we really have a best-of-breed solution around how we collaborate. We're using Slack as that core for a lot of our collaboration, and really that center hub on how we're bringing teams together. Pretty heavy users around Zoom as far as video and how we interact with video. And then we have several other different options around Quip and a lot of things around code creation and co-authoring.
Okay.
Yeah, hi. Mott MacDonald is a 16,000 person strong global engineering firm. We operate in about 150 countries, and my story is a bit different, where we've aligned very heavily with Microsoft. So we made a decision a number of years to go all in with Microsoft and to get the value out of all of the tools that they provide. So our UC infrastructure is Skype on-premise, and we're making the move to Skype Online for all 16,000 of our users. We're about halfway through that, and we can talk a bit about some of those challenges we've had with that move. But really, really excited to be here. And again, thank you as well, Beth, for the opportunity to sit.
Good morning, Beth. Thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm Michael Sherwood, the Director of Technology and Innovation for the City of Las Vegas. About 3,500 employees. Our journey is kind of not as advanced as the two gentlemen have gone before me. We're just finishing up migrating from legacy PBX to a VoIP system. We're in between deciding as an organization between we have some Skype for Business, we have some legacy even beyond that, Link and Office Communicator Pod still out there. We're also implementing WebEx and Skype, more to do with our intelligent sensor program. We'll probably talk about a little bit more about that later. And more of our journey is just trying to figure out what our diverse user groups want in order to communicate. It's basically, well, it's the city of Las Vegas. It's like having 21 different companies under one roof. So it's really trying to figure out between each organization what works best for them and how we're going to deliver those services to them.
And Jason?
Morning, Beth. So Jason Kasch, I'm the Chief Information Officer at a company called Structural Group. We're the small player up here. We have about 3,500 people around the world combining engineering, product, and civil services to enhance the world's infrastructure. So we went all in on UCaaS about 6 years ago, so we've been doing this for a while. And right now, our platform is Ring Central, and we're using the whole gamut of their services. We are an O365 Microsoft customer also, but we think there's some components of Ring Central's product that's a little bit better than Microsoft's right now.
I'm sure that a lot of the folks in the audience are in a position now where they're trying to figure out what to do with the cloud if they haven't already migrated to the cloud. What can you guys share? What advice can you share about your transitions to the cloud and the thoughts that went into those?
Look, for 21st Century Fox, it's core to our strategy. I can't imagine a world that we would actually be able to deal with the scale of content, from content creation through content distribution, without the cloud. So looking at partners like Okta, Slack, Zoom, we are a heavy Office 365 user as well. Pretty dependent on things like Workday and Salesforce. So, but that's from a business app point of view. But just when you think about the media and what cloud means to us, there is no world that we could actually do what we're able to do without it being core to our strategy.
And before I move on to the others, was it a kind of your premises, like your legacy system was end of life, or was it just time for a change?
I think it was time for the change, and I think one of the advantages we have is the media industry has gone through such a digital transformation, and we were really, for us to be great partners, we really had to transform how we were serving up those services. So when you start thinking about one of our content applications that has 25 million assets of film and television content, the idea of trying to handle that on legacy applications or legacy environment just doesn't scale, especially when you start thinking about, 90, if we're dealing with 90 plus countries and 60 plus languages, there is no model that we could actually scale to what's happened the last several years without the cloud.
Okay. What about you, Ron?
Yeah, so cloud is core to our strategy as well. It's kind of the where we started with, and the recognition that Mott MacDonald's not our core business technology, it's something else. So using the benefits of scale in the cloud and the ability for it to cover our geographies really well was key to our decision to go in to the Microsoft environment the way we did. And we've done it for everything else, and you see here is the last of the bits, and we're hopeful that that's going to go well. We're working really hard on it. One of the things too, one of the key fundamentals to going to the cloud is it also changes how you choose to provision your underlying infrastructure. So what kind of network do you actually need to use the cloud? And we believe that the internet itself is all you need. So we're working through that, and we don't have a private network anymore. So when you go all in, you go all in, and that's part of our story, and it does have some challenges as well, though.
Okay.
So the same would go for us. I mean, cloud first is key to our future. It's key to being able to deliver services. Really, if we're not number one, number two, or number three in the business, we try to avoid those lines of business. I don't think anybody in the audience, even myself, would say you've heard of Las Vegas as the best cloud provider or the best service provider. We may be a great entertainment provider, but we're definitely not in that business. So if I can redirect labor away from infrastructure and more towards knowledge and service, then that's the key. And that's really what drives the cloud across the entire organization, is that redistribution of capital and human capital, most importantly, to knowledge-based, service-based things that are going to help the organization either become more efficient or grow revenue.
Okay. What about you, Jason? 6 years in, that's quite a long time.
Yeah, so we're the outlier again. Interesting. So this is a nice dynamic in this panel today. So we went all in on our first platform was voice 6 years ago, before cloud just became this buzzword of what it was. And kind of the last thing in for us has been CRM, right, with Salesforce at the tail end of it. So it's a little bit different story. I would say don't underestimate the strain on the infrastructure that going all in cloud produces. So the thing that becomes important now is circuits, uptime, and bandwidth, and those things, and do not underestimate the big strain that's going to put on your infrastructure.
Good advice. I'm curious what you guys think about team collaboration. John, you mentioned Slack. I know Jason used Glip, and you guys use Teams. Yes, no,
Teams,
not yet.
SharePoint,
so,
Yammer.
We hear about team collaboration a lot as being sort of the next mode of collaboration, communications within the enterprise. How have you gotten to where you are today with team collaboration, and how well adopted is it within your organizations?
So very well adopted. We actually, we did an initial study looking at 2 or 3 different products, and what really drove us to Slack was that, quite frankly, is the usage. And when we start tracking, how often it's being used, how people are using it. So we've now gone all in on Slack. So every single employee has a Slack account. And it's not just collaborating, because our real challenge is not just the enterprise of 25,000. We probably have another 20,000 people externally that really get involved in the creative process. So collaboration is critical. But what we've seen is just, it redefines, and I think we've lived in such a world so long with email that when you go all in and you truly embrace it as a platform, we're just seeing all kinds of use cases pop up where you have, we had a chairman that had a session called Ask Me Anything, and she opened up a Slack channel. They publicized it ahead of time that it was going to occur, and it was shocking to me how many hundreds of people were actively asking her questions and then coming up with all these suggestions. So we've got from the extreme at the executive level all the way just you start seeing how this viral nature kicks in once you're all in on, quite frankly, the organization working across all these different divisions.
Anybody else?
Yeah, it's interesting, different industries, but a very similar problem. So as a design engineering firm, we collaborate not only across our own offices and our own people, but externally quite a bit. We have partners and JVs on projects across the world. And our story started a bit more interestingly that the very first aspect of Microsoft Office 365 we rolled out was Yammer, because we saw the need to get, our knowledge was spread across a lot of people embedded in email, like you mentioned, and by releasing Yammer and creating, at the time, Yammer channels for all of our different disciplines and practices as business, allowing people, people that would have never communicated together before suddenly are communicating. And just after that, we released Link at the time, and that changed the world for us, right? That really made a big difference. Suddenly, projects were able to share screens amongst each other, and the communication on Yammer was huge. And going forward, we're not fully into Teams yet, but we are exploring it with Microsoft, and the convergence of all of that into one thing is going to be massive for us, and we're really excited about that opportunity.
John had mentioned, the chairman opening up a Slack channel for all questions. Do you see a top-down endorsement of team collaboration as important within MacDonald?
Yeah, I mean, to borrow our tagline as a firm, it's opening opportunities with connected thinking. That's our mission statement as a firm, and that's from our chairman, right? So the answer is yes, and that's what we're about as a business, right? Collaboration and the sharing of knowledge across each other for the betterment of our own business in the world, actually.
Okay. What about you, Michael?
So ours is kind of interesting story. I mean, they have humans, and we have 3,500 employees. We also have right now about 20,000 sensors throughout the city that communicate everything from the first autonomous vehicle that's been driving in mixed flow traffic for 6 months now. And I did have an accident its first day, unfortunately, but it's okay after that. But those sensors now are actually becoming communications devices. So if you think about this is happening today in Las Vegas. If a sensor has a problem, it's actually opening up a Spark channel and opening up a camera so that the operators or the handlers that need the information can actually see what's happening in real time. And then they're able to bring in other divisions or other departments and actually have a working communication session, a team session, if you want to call it, about what's happening in the street, what's happening at a park. From a security perspective, it can be from security to mobility, meaning traffic, congestion, and flow. So all those things. So really, this whole communications as a platform is opening up new vantage points in just operations, as well as collaboration internally. I think they did a good job on the collaboration piece, but now we're using it not just for human collaboration, but for machine-to-machine collaboration, where then the operator or the handler can actually see what's happening and make additional decisions. So if you imagine a city that has hundreds of intersections, you can't watch all the cameras at one time, and you can't collaborate that way either. So if you have just something that happens and the handler needs to see that information, now it comes up to them, and then they can pull in the teams that they need to in real time.
Do you have any metrics to share by chance in terms of time to resolution of any sort of situation?
I definitely want to mention too many things here. People tweet about that. I mean, it's very new in its infancy, so I want to be very careful. I mean, we've only, like I said, the autonomous shuttle's been in maybe 6 months. Most of our sensor technology downtown is all being tested. It's not perfect. A lot of the workflows don't always work as nicely or as seamlessly as I just sort of portrayed the picture of it working.
But you can't fool that.
Well, everybody knows. But it's the vision that we're looking for the future. But I think you will see resolutions cut by 50%, if not more than that. And that would be a conservative estimate right now. I would say some of the things we've seen just by having this type of technology on the back end, from a safety perspective, from just a traffic perspective, will greatly enhance our operational effectiveness and lower our overall costs long term.
Okay. Jason, how about your experience with team collaboration within Structural Group?
Yeah, so we had a myriad of products before we put Glip in. We had Slack, we had Yammer, we had Oracle Social Network, we had GroupMe, we had a bunch of different products where people were collaborating, and the one piece that it was missing was a central contact point. So if you think about think about your Active Directory, right? And so you've got this place where all the people in your organization live and information about them. Here's where their office is, here's their phone number, here's their texting account, and how do you get access to those individuals? So with all these disparate systems that we had, they weren't plugged in to this one central point. So if I wanted to talk to Tom and Sally and Mary in 3 different countries, and they weren't all on the same platform, this group of individuals were on Slack, these individuals were on Yammer, these guys were on on GroupMe. And I wanted to have a conversation either about a project or about an occurrence that happened on a job site, being a construction. Boots on the field conditions on the ground change consistently. And if everyone was on a different platform, I didn't have the ability to single point and click to start a video conference or a conversation immediately, right now, to let's have a conversation about what we've seen. So when we collapsed all of those onto one platform, we didn't do it consciously saying, hey, this is a problem. We didn't realize it was a problem. But the minute we launched Ring Central and then gave everyone in the company access to this thing called GLIP, everyone started migrating all of their conversations to this platform simply so that they could converse with everybody else in the company. So it just kind of happened.
So would others agree that that single front end, that single team collaboration tool is essential if you're going to be doing this?
I think that was the pivoting point for us, that once we got everybody on the same platform, even a different tech stack, the fact that all this fragmented conversation with fragmented tools actually creates a bigger problem. And I think once we committed to, for us, it was Slack and Zoom, it just changed everything because then everybody's on that same platform with that same experience for some consistency.
Okay.
I think for us, it is still a bit fragmented, even though we're all in the Microsoft environment, and I think Microsoft recognized that as well. That's where I think Teams is coming from, because it does bring those conversations together into one place. Like you just described, like the conference or the call and the conversation are happening in the same place, as well as the other collaborative tools that we use, SharePoint and others. So for us, it's gonna look a little different as we go forward, maybe very different actually, and it's gonna be pretty exciting.
Okay.
I'm an outlier, I guess. I'd like to have what they have, but most likely we'll have a fragmented world. We allow employees to have an iPhone or an Android. We'll continue to allow either a Microsoft path and a Cisco path or Spark path / WebEx. Either one of those lines of business. I mean, all of our vendors we work with use different platforms, and internally we'll allow the same kind of division. And hoping at some point that we can get to the utopia of having one platform. From a maintenance standpoint, it would be much more progressive.
It's always politics with the city government, right?
Oh,
Whether
come on,
it's
not
technology.
that bad.
I want to take a question from the audience because it is on team collaboration. So do any of you perform any data analysis on your collaboration channels, and how?
So we measure our usage, first off, almost like a consumer product, because we want to make sure that we're getting the proper usage. Because, look, when you have the scale of the company we're dealing with, it might be used in one division versus another, and the question starts becoming why, right? So then that allows us to really hone in on, we have an internal customer advocate that her job is really to work with the various groups and help them embrace these collaboration tools. So we do treat it like almost a consumer product. We also publish really interesting use cases, because it's amazing how much you share. It really sparks ideas for other divisions to be able to leverage the platforms. So it's been a big benefit on really the uptick.
Can you give us an example of one of those use cases?
Yeah, so like there was a group in Fox Sports that wanted to be able to have a mobile experience around video conferencing. So we built literally a Zoom portable environment that they can take on any on-set location for a sports event. And it just kind of starts thinking about it where, wait a minute, if we're doing that, can we end up doing the same thing on film production? So it actually starts people kind of reimagining how you can bring that video experience in to, regardless of where the location is for the work that's occurring.
Okay. Anybody else want to share their experience collecting and analyzing data off their channels?
Yeah, we use metrics. So we look at things like top users, people who used to be a top user who now in the last 30 days have started to slow down, to understand, is something wrong with the product? Is it the environment? Did they travel to a region where they didn't have access to it? What caused it? And then we look at those individuals as our customer advocates internally. So they're really the flag carriers for these types of platforms. So we look at the top usage, the bottom usage, consistent usage over time. Have they started to elevate it? Have they started to decrease it? What are the number of groups that get created, and consolidation of those groups? So when you see a dozen groups pop up in a day, and you have to deal with those. And the problem you get is people don't necessarily then know what channel to go to get information. So you get 5 innovation channels that all crop up that are all talking about the same thing. So you have to, after the fact, I'm not a big advocate of the IT Gestapo stepping in. I kind of like to let the snowball roll downhill and then understand how we can leverage what people have learned from the tool. So after the fact, we do a retrospective look at it and say, well, can we collapse these groups because you all seem to be talking about the same things? Why was this one created? And usually it's because the ecosystem gets just so big, and if there's thousands of groups in there, they didn't know to look before they created. It's just like your CRM, right? When you start a new job with a new customer, how many salespeople actually go in and look to see if the customer already exists versus just creating a new customer on their own if they can. So we treat it just like we would treat our CRM system, where we would go in after the fact, try to consolidate, and get those individuals back on the same page.
Okay. I wanted to switch topics here, and backstage we were talking a little bit about CPaaS. That's another buzzword, communications platform as a service. And you guys had some interesting thoughts on CPaaS, including some of you not recognizing the term. So I'm just kind of curious where you guys are thinking in terms of using communications APIs. Too buzzy still for you?
I can speak. It's not. I don't think it's too buzzy. I think it's understanding the difference between the two, right? So CPaaS is like a box of Lincoln Logs, right? So you get all the tools that you need, and then you use microservices. I'm trying not to be too buzzwordy here, but you use all these services to interconnect all of these different capabilities. So you can get best in class, best in breed, two-factor authentication from someone like Twilio, right? And integrate that into your communications platform if that's something you need, if your communication platform doesn't offer it. So I think the advantage to that is being able to buy these APIs and services from the best-in-class, best-in-breed products that are out there, but then you own the set of Lincoln Logs, so the tying them together becomes your responsibility. So you've really got to think about what you're doing versus can you buy that service from the vendor that you have? Can you work with the partners that you have to have them deliver that service to you?
And is that a strategy that you take kind of across the board, or do you have to rethink that question every time something, a desired integration comes up? Or
yeah, well, we treat this no different than any other. I've been deploying IT services for over 25 years. So you have to look at the problem, you have to understand the problem, and then you have to do the mental gymnastics. Can I buy it, right? So if you're in the world of cloud today, you really should be thinking about, can I buy the service from somebody else, right? Because they're experts. I'm not experts. It doesn't matter if I had a 1,000-person IT organization. We can't be the expert in everything that we do, but we can buy it from somebody who is an expert. So can I buy it? Can I buy it and tie it together with these microservices type capabilities? And then in a last resort, can I build it for my organization? But the very first line of code that goes down, I start looking for another company that I can buy that services from. And I treat what we've written as a proof of concept that I can go to market and start asking my partners to deliver this tool to me, deliver this tool to me, deliver this tool to me, and we'll turn it over to you.
Does that resonate with any of?
So our story is a little bit different in the fact, and we talked about this backstage. So, the opportunity to, combine your UC platform with other platforms is huge for us, right? But we've taken it a bit up to the vendor level. So we've sort of tried to put together a strategic vendor relationship. So we have a couple core vendors at the enterprise level, Microsoft being one of them, and then a few others on our design platforms, and then our ERP system for that matter. So, having the ability to combine those and integrate them is not something we're that interested in doing ourselves, and we'd rather see if we can engage with our vendors to have them do it, right? Some platforms today, like an example would be Box.com, for instance, has, kind of has a default cloud marketplace already in place. So it's inherent to their platform, but unfortunately some of the vendors we work with aren't there, right? So can we, bring these guys together and ask them to kind of do that bit of development for us so that it's supportable through their channels rather than it falling on us to have to do it. So We've had some success there. So we've seen one of our vendors as an example working heavily with Microsoft in the team space to bring their collaboration platform into the Teams environment in a meaningful way, and that's of a huge benefit to us.
Okay. Michael, I'm going to... Oh, go ahead,
Sorry,
John.
just to echo that comment. I mean, I think we avoid the build part of it. We're really trying to partner with the right partners and leverage the buy part of it. Because back to your earlier comment about the cloud, is I just think there's so much innovation going on that you can tap into with the right partners. And they've built so much of this to try to deal with how do you deal with the seamless integration. So I mean, if you're in Slack and you want to kick off a Zoom session, it's not a separate experience. So they've already thought through it. I mean, we're a big Salesforce customer, so we've got some deep, tight integration on Box, for example, on making that collaboration seamless on the documents. So.
Okay. Michael, I wanted to ask you a question. Actually, somebody in the audience wanted to ask you a question. So. And it is API related, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So you had mentioned using Spark in a sensor collaboration scenario. Does Spark have a direct API?
We're doing some unique things with Cisco directly. So we have a partnership. We have a Kinetic Smart Cities product that we use, and we build work orders through integration through that product and then out to a Spark session. So it's sort of the opposite. It's not Spark in, it's our smart city system out to Spark. And that's allowing us to look at basically different scenarios as they happen and then launch these basically conference sessions so that managers or directors or handlers of the problem then can actually see what's happening or what's taking place and then initiate additional sessions with individuals they might need to call in.
Okay. I would imagine that a lot of what we've been talking about so far really under sort of the big digital transformation umbrella. Would you agree? And anybody care to share sort of what your role is in your company's digital transformation, if it is indeed going through digital transformation?
Yeah, of course we're going through digital transformation, right? That's everything, right? You'll hear it all over the place, and my role is I'm focused right now on our North American business, and even though we're a global organization, we've chosen to take our leadership roles in the technology space specifically, and sort of break them up or distribute them, I guess, right? So I have a piece of the pie, and then we have different roles in different places around the globe. But the key to digital transformation is obviously people coming along the journey with you, right? You can't transform a business if it doesn't want to be transformed, or you don't have people that are interested in it, right? So really using adoption, and probably relevant to this, is using those technologies that we have in place, right, to help show that value of UC as an example, or collaboration, or team working, right? So that is where the key is, right? Can I convince, or can I bring someone to the table and say, look, this is what you're going to get if you choose to change the way you work today towards this new digital way. And we're seeing results now. It's starting to happen for us, and it's really, really exciting. So.
We've had a significant transformation going on. I briefly touched on it with digital, and I think it's what's happened to the media industry, which has actually been a huge opportunity to kind of reevaluate who are our right partners, who are really going to be the partners of the future for us. And it's really just, it's all the way from content creation, both on film and television product, all the way through content distribution. I mean, we're now distributing content in every country in the world but one, which just tells you how quick the whole world has changed. And I think to me what's exciting about this, so our role has been significant in really helping that journey management with the business. But then when you fast forward, and our focus now is around the enterprise. It's, how do we drive that transformation to really help enable the enterprise, which is obviously communication and collaboration is at the core.
Do you want to jump in?
I'd just say, of course. I mean, I think we're probably the laggards in government behind more commercial enterprise, but it's definitely a transformation in government, from transparency to just smart lighting to all the different things that are happening in that space to make the city more efficient and to have more data collection and to be able to make real business decisions based on actual information.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll echo that. You gotta figure out what you're going to do with the data. So you're going to get an immense amount of information back from whether they're sensors, applications, and then what are you going to do with it? So we're going through a project right now of trying to take pictures, and we're working with a company that can take pictures and video and try to analyze a structure and tell us whether there's defects on the external side of it. So we'll do a drone flyby of it, we'll capture a 360 view, and then we'll run that through a series of AI use cases, and then have it tell us, instead of having an engineer hanging off the side of a building in New York City from a rope, which is required by law to do every 3 years because things are always falling off. And how do you make that process more efficient, safer for the individuals? And so we're using AI to be able to do analysis of these videos and say, here was a typical use case, and do you see something that's atypical, right? So do you see a crack? Do you see a defect? And then analyze that. And so using digitization of all of that to be able to do things that a human used to do off the side of this building with a rope.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. So the question that you asked before about analytics and are we taking any metrics, I was going to answer it a little differently, and you suggested it. So the win for us here is that our knowledge is in the information that's being shared in these platforms, right? So through our UC platform, and even hate to mention them, but email and et cetera, right? So before, when it was distributed or it wasn't in a way that it was collectible and we couldn't analyze the information. Now today, we have the ability to see all that information, right, and start to really understand if we have information that has value, right? So information as an asset becomes really important here, right? And you can't really do that, in our industry at least, until you have access to that stuff, right? So, that could be, like you said, some photographs that we have, but more importantly, those conversations that are going on are likely to have some valuable information that could be an asset that we could look to potentially monetize or use it as an add-on service to what we deliver to our clients. So it's, to me, like the big story is, once you get these platforms in place, what are you going to do with the information that you now have access to? And that's the direction we're headed in, and it's really exciting for us to be able to do that.
Okay. There's knowledge in those conversations. There's also potentially private information.
Sure.
So, in one of the attendees wanted to know how you're thinking about information security, privacy, as you move forward with a more team collaborative experience.
So you have to store it, you have to be able to recover it, and you have to e-discover it, right? So it's no different than any other platform that we've been delivering for years and years and years. It's not a phone conversation, right? It's not recorded, but it's the data, and you treat the data no different than you treat it out of your financial system, out of your sales and marketing system. It's just it's a series of information, and you got to be able to back it up, restore it, and e-discover it against it. You just have to do those things.
Okay.
I think security is an overriding concern of mine specifically, especially when you start having systems that are changing street lights or changing light timing, controlling water flow and things that are actually then talking back into the corporate network, where those networks were always segregated. It becomes something that you're constantly aware of and something that you're constantly guarding against. But I would say it's probably the #1 component of our program is security first.
Okay.
Well, and I think one of the things we pushed with our strategy was there was initially some shadow IT going on, which to me is even more concerning when you start talking about the conversations and the security around that. By really us deploying these tools and bringing them through Okta, properly monitoring and managing them like we do any other environment, I think it's just fundamentally changed how much more competent we feel from a security point of view. And then the content itself, our users are very aware that obviously they're not going to put a draft version of the next big film out there. I mean, it's set up as an open collaboration platform, and they know all the advantages that brings and some of the challenges. But at the same time, then there's hundreds of things that are very appropriate for that kind of a platform to be able to collaborate.
Okay.
Well, I think you have to think about HIPAA requirements as well. You're, just conversations internally about what you can and can't say, even from an HR perspective to a manager in another department, all those things, especially when you have a city, you may have medical services, public safety entities that we have to sort of guard them and train them on what should be used or when they need to pick up some other type of communication. methodology. No different than email, just a new set of training, I think, and guidelines that you have to provide education to staff.
How much external communications are you doing, or allowing, external conversations are you allowing? In a Slack, for example.
Yeah, I mean, ours is significant because just it's the nature of how content is created through distributed, right? There's as many people involved in the process externally as there is internally. So we really needed an environment and with all these tools that really allowed for that openness on being able to handle that kind of an enterprise.
Okay.
So we're doing quite a bit, and to be honest, it's still a lot via email. So the change for us is going to be, having those conversations in, say, Teams or Yammer, but it's still email, and I think it's unfortunately going to be part of the conversation for a while going. So how do you bring that in to the environments that we're talking about? Still an issue for us.
I don't think email's going anywhere,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So we can stand up here all day and talk about new technologies, but email's been around a long time. Texting came around, SMSing came around, email's still here. Right, so there's a reason people like it. There's things that work. I think it's just understanding how these group dynamics and which capability, which platform they want to use. And in a perfect world, if you could tie those individuals that live and breathe in their email to those individuals that live and breathe in the collaboration environment and use some kind of service to tie those things together, then the people that like email can live in email. The people that like their collaboration platform, and it could be multiple collaboration platforms for that matter, doesn't matter. As long as you can tie all these things together and let the individual live in the ecosystem that they want to live in versus forcing them all to have to come to the one that IT provided.
Well, we are just about wrapped up for now. Maybe just one quick bit of advice from each of you, real quick.
Oh, go ahead.
Look, it's one of these things that we've embraced it and we're all in, and I think of finding the right partners for the environment to meet your goals, and it has truly fundamentally changed in the last couple of years on being able to collaborate across the organization.
Okay.
I mean, I echo that, and the one thing we didn't talk about is mobility of these solutions, right? So the world lives on mobile devices, right? So any solution that you look at or you're going to look at has to work across, the desktop versus the mobile environment.
Okay.
I don't think one size fits all. I think there's a lot of opportunities out there to look at different platforms. It's really what understand your business and the business segment you're working with and try to provide a solution around that.
I would say don't try to dictate your ideas to the business. Chaos is good. Out of chaos comes innovation.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate it. Audience, how about we give them a nice round of applause?